200 men, one dog, and 6 minutes that changed everything. The men had no idea what was coming, but he did. It's November 1944, deep in the Philippine jungle, the kind of darkness where you can't see your own hand in front of your face. 200 American soldiers are trying to sleep. They're exhausted, sick, running on almost nothing. Some of them haven't had a real meal in days. Some of them haven't slept more than a couple of hours straight in weeks. And somewhere out there, in that black wall of jungle surrounding them, 220 Japanese soldiers are moving toward them, silent, patient, invisible. The Americans don't know. Their guards don't know. Their radios have nothing. But one living thing on that ridgeline knows something is wrong. And what he does next will save every man in that camp. Charlie Company had been through hell before they even got to this ridgeline. They were part of the 25th Infantry Division, the Tropic Lightning, one of the toughest units in the entire Pacific. They'd been fighting non-stop since the landings at Leyte Gulf on October 20th, 1944. That landing was supposed to be the beginning of the end, MacArthur wading ashore, the Philippines finally being taken back. But the jungle didn't care about that. By the time Charlie Company pushed inland toward the Ormoc Valley, they weren't the same unit that had started the campaign. They had lost men to bullets, to malaria, to dysentery, to sheer exhaustion that no amount of willpower can fight off forever. Their captain, Harold Brent, was 29 years old. He'd started with 187 men. Now he had fewer than 160. And somewhere along a muddy trail 3 weeks earlier, they'd picked up one more.
Nobody knew where he came from. He just appeared one day on the trail. Skinny, muddy, light brown, watchful eyes that didn't miss a thing. A farm dog, probably. Maybe belongs to a family that the war had scattered. Nobody really knew, and nobody asked too many questions. That's not what you do in a jungle when something small and alive shows up and seems to want to stay. Private First Class Darnell Hayes fed him first. Just some scraps, nothing special. But the dog stayed. Hayes called him Corporal. And Corporal started going everywhere the company went, sleeping in fighting positions, moving when they moved, staying close, always close. The men didn't make a big deal about it. When you're that deep in something that terrible, you hold on to the small things. A letter from home, a photograph, a dog that chooses you out of all the jungle in the Philippines. You don't question it. You're just glad it's there. Nobody knew it yet, but Corporal was going to earn his name. November 14th, late afternoon. Charlie Company digs in on a low ridgeline about 4 kilometers northwest of a town called Limon. It's a decent position, good sight lines, easy to defend, in daylight. At night, it becomes something else entirely. Brent had heard rumors, fragments of intelligence suggesting Japanese forces from the 1st Division were operating nearby. The 1st Division, battle-tested veterans who'd been fighting since China, men who knew exactly how to disappear into jungle and reappear somewhere they weren't supposed to be. What Brent didn't know, couldn't have known, was that a force of 220 Japanese soldiers had already been moving toward his ridgeline for 8 straight hours. No lights, no noise, just slow, deliberate movement through the dark. Their plan was simple and devastating. Hit the perimeter from 3 sides at once, overrun it before anyone could react, take back the supply trail Charlie Company had cut 3 days earlier. And if 160 exhausted Americans happened to be sleeping when they arrived, all the better. Brent pushed 3 listening posts out beyond the wire, posted as guards. The men who weren't on watch lay down in their fighting positions with their boots still on, rifles within reach. By 2130 hours, the jungle had gone quiet. Now here's the thing about the Philippine jungle at night. It is never quiet. There are always insects, always birds, always something moving, calling, alive. When that sound stops, something made it stop. Brent's men didn't notice. Corporal did. Hayes was on a rest cycle, southeast corner of the perimeter, half asleep. Corporal pressed up against his leg like always. And then the dog went still, not asleep, not relaxed, frozen. Every muscle locked, head low, eyes cutting into the darkness like he could see straight through it. Hayes felt it before he understood it, that tension moving through the dog's body into his own, something ancient and animal that bypassed his brain completely and went straight to his gut. He sat up. He stared into the jungle. Nothing, just black, just silence. But Corporal wasn't moving, wasn't breathing normally, wasn't taking his eyes off whatever was out there. Hayes grabbed his field telephone. Within minutes, Captain Brent was awake. He didn't hesitate. He pulled all 3 listening posts back inside the wire immediately. 3 men who would have been sitting alone in the dark when the attack came, pulled back in time. By 21:55, Charlie Company was standing too, every single man, at his post, loaded, ready, silent. No lights, no talking, just 200 men in the dark, waiting for something they couldn't see and didn't fully understand yet. Corporal still hadn't made a sound. He was just watching, waiting. And then, at 22:03 hours, he growled. 1 second of growl. Then the jungle exploded. 220 Japanese soldiers hit the perimeter from 3 directions at once. Southeast, south, southwest, screaming, firing, grenades already in the air before the first Americans even registered what was happening. This was designed to be a slaughter, and against a sleeping company, it would have been. But they weren't sleeping. The first wave ran straight into a wall of fire. M1 Garens, BAR automatic rifles, 2 M1919 machine guns that had been sitting in the dark, loaded, waiting. A mortar team that had already pre-mapped the most likely approach routes before the sun went down. All of it opened up at once. The noise was indescribable. The kind of sound that doesn't just hit your ears, it hits your chest, your bones, your whole body. Muzzle flashes strobing in the dark, grenades going off every few seconds, men screaming in 2 languages. And it was still close, dangerously close. In Hayes' sector, right where Corporal Janga had been staring, Japanese soldiers reached the wire before they were stopped. 2 Americans went down wounded. A third, Private Thomas Okafor, 21 years old, from Cleveland, Ohio, was killed by a grenade at 22:07 hours. For 11 minutes, nobody knew how it was going to end. The Japanese kept pushing, probing, looking for the weak point. They were good soldiers, experienced soldiers. They didn't break at the first contact. Brent moved along his perimeter the whole time, not hiding, moving, talking, steady. The kind of steady that only matters because the men around you need to see it. The smell of gunpowder and blood and wet earth. Men who'd been asleep 10 minutes ago, now fighting for their lives in total darkness. 11 minutes that felt like a lifetime.
At 22:14, the Japanese attack started to crack. The mortar team had found their range on the southern approach. Sergeant First Class Alois Kowalski put 3 rounds down fast, directly into the Japanese reserve element forming up in the jungle. 7 men killed, the rest scattered. No reserves meant no reinforcement. No reinforcement meant no momentum. Brent saw it happening in real time. He had 12 men held back for exactly this moment. He sent them straight at the breach in the southeastern wire, the most dangerous point on the whole perimeter. 4 minutes, that's all it took. The breach was closed. By 22:31, the firing was already slowing down. By 22:45, it had stopped completely. The Japanese force pulled back into the jungle. They didn't come back. When the sun came up over that ridgeline on November 15th, Brent walked the perimeter slowly. 11 men wounded, 3 badly enough that they needed to be carried out, and Private Thomas Okafor, 21 years old, gone. Beyond the wire, they counted 43 Japanese soldiers dead around the perimeter. Documents taken from the bodies confirmed the attack force had been a reinforced company, 220 men. The losses they took that night effectively destroyed them as a fighting unit. 220 men against 160. In the dark, hitting 3 sides at once, and Charlie Company held. Because a dog woke up a soldier 6 minutes before it all began. 6 minutes. That's it. That's all the margin was. 6 minutes is nothing in the middle of a normal day. You could spend 6 minutes looking for your keys, waiting for coffee to brew. For 200 men on a ridgeline in the Philippines, 6 minutes was the entire distance between living and dying.
The after-action report was filed on November 22, 1944. Captain Brent wrote in the careful, measured language that Army officers used that the company had received approximately 6 minutes of warning before the assault began, due to the behavior of a unit mascot dog. Just like that, one sentence, buried in a report that almost nobody read. Hayes got a Bronze Star, cited for alertness, communication, and calm under fire. He stood in the mud and accepted it without much ceremony. That's how it went over there. Corporal got nothing. No medal, no official recognition. The Army didn't do that for dogs. He just kept walking with the company, eating from their rations, sleeping beside Hayes at night, doing what he'd always done. When the division redeployed in spring 1945, Hayes tried to bring him home, filed the paperwork, asked around. The paperwork was rejected. What happened to Corporal after Hayes shipped out? Nobody wrote it down. It's not in any record, not in any history of the 35th Infantry Regiment. He just disappears from the story. But the men who were there, the ones who came home, who got old, who tried to sleep through the decades after the war, some of them said they never stopped thinking about him. That when the nights got bad and the memories came back, they'd sometimes find themselves back on that ridgeline, thinking about a skinny brown dog going rigid in the dark, and the 6 minutes that followed. Private Thomas Okafor is buried at the Manila American Cemetery in the Philippines. His name is on the wall of the missing alongside 36,285 other Americans who never came home from the Pacific. He was 21 years old. He was from Cleveland, Ohio. He deserved to grow old.
200 men made it off that ridgeline because of a dog that nobody trained, that nobody issued, that just showed up one day on a muddy trail and decided these were his people. Wars are full of stories like this. Small moments, quiet decisions, things that never make the history books. This was one of them. This was just one of countless untold stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, America and WWII Stories, so the men who lived them and the ones who didn't are never forgotten.